Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming back. My name is Joanna and my passion is to help you get you through and past your limitations. These are going to be your messages for September. For those of you who are a regular for my channel, you'll notice I did not upload any August videos, hence why these videos are quite a bit longer. There was a lot of information that I channeled through. So if you can't watch it all at once, maybe break it into pieces. If you need to just get moving into the videos, I'll put a stamp down below so that you don't have to listen to the record to this part. But I want to say a few things. First and foremost, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being part of my channel. Thank you for being part of my journey. Thank you for always inspiring me and encouraging me to be the best at what I do. And you'll notice my work is changing. It has been changing for a while, but it's more apparent than any time before that the way I work is shifting and changing. So consequently, over the next few months, you will notice that the way my videos are coming out are a little bit different, or the way the messages are coming out in my videos are a little bit different. There seems to be a greater emphasis on healing, so there will be some energetic healing that will come through. I will talk about that more a little bit later on a different video. But more than anything, there seems to be a bit of a shift in terms of how I receive messages and also what types of messages want to come through me. So if you have watched my videos for a while, you may see a bit of a change. I feel to me, it's incredible. The change is always good. Change is not always easy. But nonetheless, I feel the way things are going to progress going forward is the messages will be maybe even much more meaningful, even though I find that they're meaningful anyways, and many of you find my messages meaningful. I feel it's going to be even more meaningful. There's going to be a lot more that I will be channeling through to you. Speaking of channeling, I have noticed more and more that I am beginning to use less and less visuals, as in cards, and much more channeling. So you will notice in some of the videos that I have cards, but I barely talk about the cards. I show them here and there, but most of the messages are channeled. I feel that's eventually how my messages will come through. They will probably be mostly channeled with maybe some visuals, some tools, but long time ago Spirit told me that eventually my work is going to consist of channeling information and not really reading cards. So you'll see that coming through more and more as time goes on. And is there anything else I wanted to say? Yes, the 6-month messages, which are on Vimeo from July until the end of this year, there's a link down there below for you. And more than anything, if this doesn't make sense to you because it is general, then listen to it down the road, or even end of September or even October. I often mention that these messages flow way beyond a certain month. So I wouldn't be surprised if the messages you hear in September cover September, October, and November, even towards the end of the year. So keep that in mind. Also, some messages may not make sense to you at all because they are general, and I can only cover so many scenarios in a general situation. With that said, if anything resonates with you, or if you feel pulled towards having more of a personal session with me, that information is down below, and I trust you know how to find me. And again, I want to thank you for being part of my channel. Without you, I wouldn't do this. My gratitude goes out to you, and I love hearing your comments. I love reading your comments, and yeah, I hope you enjoy these videos and all the other videos that follow. And with that said, let's move on into each individual sign. Hello, beautiful sign of Scorpio. These are going to be your messages for the next little while, or until the end of September or thereabouts. I am recording this in August. I almost said April. So this may have been unfolding for you in August, or it will begin to unfold for you around the month of September. even October. So I want to say give it 2 or 3 months. There's something very beautiful that I feel when I connect to this energy. As I was shuffling cards and connecting to Source, preparing to give you a message, I saw a snowflake, and I actually heard a snowflake. And the moment I saw the snowflake, I knew what it meant. It meant uniqueness. And I also know that the reason why I was being shown this snowflake is to communicate a message that you are like no one else. You are unique like a snowflake. And therefore, determining value, your own value, on something outside of you doesn't make sense. In other words, by comparing yourself to others to find your own value makes no sense, because there is no one like you. I'm going to let that sit for a while. Chew on that a little bit. See what comes up for you when I say this. I'm also being aware that there is an energy current running through me right now, and it will reach you. So if you are someone who is sensitive, you may begin to feel certain feelings and emotions, particularly right about now. And some of you, you will feel it in your throat. Some of you, you will feel like a slight pressure around your chest. This is very interesting for me. It's very new to me, so it's happening live. It happened in another sign, so that's interesting. Let's see how this goes. Point being is that there is a healing energy coming through to you, and energetically you're getting a healing. It's gratis, so if you are okay with that, then open yourself up to receive it. But some of you will feel this energy. When I was tuning in, again, at the beginning, looking for information, number 16 jumped out at me, and I knew exactly what it meant right off the bat. It meant this is the theme that we are dealing with, we meaning you. And the number, so for starters, you may have a connection to number 16. There may be something around the number 16 or age 16. That's really important for those of you. If it's around the age 16, something may have transpired around the age of 16, and you are now working through it. So you're working through reminiscence of what was back then. For others of you, it's number 16. But to me, I also knew, that it was demonstrative of the tower. So when we have the tower, when we have the tower, it means foundational changes. It means structural changes. It means, if you know what the tower is, I say it's a time for celebration, because it means broken things are being let go of, and the universe or the world will reshuffle things in such a way that will allow you to come to a new foundation that's much stronger. So to me, this signifies changes, and the changes are as a result of you having done some work. For some of you, very recently, around attachments, or around cutting cords for some of you, around addictions, and I'm saying addictions in terms of relationships, addicted to a certain way of being. For some of you, this absolutely could be addictions, but the change or the tower moment is as a result of you having made some recent changes. And I want to say cord cutting, and I don't usually use that analogy, but that's so you have separated yourself from someone or something. Could also be on an emotional level. But the tower, often when people see the tower or hear about the tower, it's not a good sign. For me, because it signifies structural changes, it means there is something wonderful happening that will allow for new experiences. And that is not always a very comfortable moment. I mean, heck, you buy a brand new pair of shoes, and sometimes those are not comfortable until you break them in a few times, but it doesn't mean they're bad just because they're temporarily uncomfortable. So it's a roundabout way saying that there will be some changes going on in your life. And structural changes to me signifies it's symbiotic with stability. So whatever we feel stability, work, relationship, absolutely your belief system, anything that I would call, basis for your existence. We need strong relationships. We need food. We need shelter. We need, stable ground. You guys get the picture. So there is some stability changes that are happening. And for some of you, it's the dependability on others for something is also changing. So the dependability could have been that you have depended on another before to make you happy, and as a result of having done some cord cutting or some emotional clearing or emotional work, you are choosing to no longer adhere to the old rules, and therefore you are beginning to look at things differently, and you're beginning to change how you do things. What it often means is that you enter a point where you're starting to do things out of your comfort zone or going against your grain. And when I say going against your grain, it's going against what is familiar. Let's call them patterns. So it basically, what's being said here is that you are in a process of either having broken some old patterns recently, or you are in a process of breaking old patterns. And particularly September, October, it's that period. I am recording this, like I said, I believe in August still. So you may have felt this in August, and they're telling me you're overthinking. Whoever you are overthinking. You are overthinking this to death. So I have to relax. When I get to my head, I get into my story. It's no longer pure flow. So the message here is relax and let it come to you. Whatever this means, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a set of circumstances that you really wanted, whether it's some destination in life. If you have been cutting some cords and if you have been doing emotional clearing, then whatever it is that you are intending, as long as you stay focused on that, okay, whatever it is that you are intending is eventually going to come to fruition. And that I see for some of you next year, and it's to do with stability. So I mean, again, stability could be anything. Foundational job changes, foundational relationship changes, foundational status changes. Perhaps you are single and now you're going to get married. Perhaps you were married and now you're going to be single. Foundational changes. But there's April, May, somewhere there for some of you, there are some structural changes. So getting back to the snowflake. A lot of this that I see here is about self-worth and value. And at the end of the day, my passion is to help you move past your limitations. So let's see how this flows. Keeping up with the snowflake. All right. So the analogy of a snowflake, as I already said, is this symbology of being unique. If you are one of those that compares yourself to others, it's pretty tough because you're unique. There's no one like you, like I said earlier. So this isn't about checking in to see if you could improve on some things. That's different. You can do that all day long. Absolutely perfect. But as long as you are needing to improve yourself because you feel something is missing, or something is broken, or something is wrong with you, or that you lack, then you are constantly coming from the place of not enough. So if you have been struggling a lot in that area of self-doubt, in whatever capacity and in whatever part of life, for some of you is eating disorders. This has manifested as an eating disorder. Okay, in order to keep your emotions down, you kind of use food to do that. For others of you, it's addictions. Point is, when you begin to accept the fact that you are unique, when you begin to accept the fact that you are unlike anybody else, and when you accept the fact that you are enough as you are, that was the biggest message that I got at the very beginning of my meditation, that you are enough as you are enough, and you begin to implement actions to help you believe it, your life will change in a matter of months. So there is some indication for some of you about some intense work you either have been doing, or you will be doing, or you are in a process of doing, or you should be doing. And should, of course, you shouldn't do anything because somebody says so. But the idea here is, why wait? So I have a feeling the tower moment is connected with that, and past the tower moment, there is an opportunity here. So I think for some, is it I think, or what is it that is it that I think it, or did I feel it? I thought it, okay. For some of you, it's changes in terms of your direction versus the direction you are heading in with someone else. So this could be a relationship, absolutely, relationship with a human, or relationship with work, or a commitment of some sort, because I see you being in a commitment of some sort and you're moving straight, and all of a sudden you are veering off, which tells me whatever the commitment is, you are veering off in a different direction. So perhaps you're coming to a realization that where this is going, it is no longer satisfying to you, and you are choosing to take an exit, or you are choosing to find a different option. Okay, so that's a structural change, and that can again symbolize anything. It could symbolize you having a partnership of some sort business wise, and all of a sudden you realize that what your partner wants and what you want are two different things, or you want to try something different, so you kind of veer off and move on your own. So for some of you, this is you, structural changes is you moving out on your own. And as a matter of fact, I'm looking at a card that I kind of said, show me what this is about for them. Follow the leader is what I'm looking at. So for some of you, you are ready to take the path of a leader, of being a leader. And you define what leader means to you. I mean, you define what leader means to you. Leader to me also symbolizes leading your own life without letting others dictate it. And of course, I'm sure you're not having people dictate how you live, but when you compare yourself to others, you are essentially letting people dictate how you live, because you're looking to them for value instead of you. Okay, in other words, you find them more valuable. Anyway, I feel you're shifting that dynamic within you. I'm just going to change the song. All this nonsense stuff about being not good enough or not being good enough, all the false beliefs that you are somehow not enough or not perfect, all that is about to clear out for quite a number of you. And you're going through this process right now. So some of you are dealing with some foundational changes. You might be dealing with changes at work. You might be dealing with changes in relationships. You might be dealing in changes with some other partnerships. There is some reshuffling going on right now. Health for some of you. For some of you, your health might be a little bit, it's trying to figure itself out. Point is that this is a time of purge. And when I say purge, I mean get things out of your system, get things out of you. And that can include cord cutting. It can also include such things as ceremonies, spiritual ceremonies, shamanic ceremonies, obviously therapy, hypnotherapy, anything of that sort, anything that will allow you to move past a certain point, okay? And I'm seeing the number 40. Why am I seeing, oh, this is the number 40. Okay, so 4 is structure, 4 is foundation. 4 to me always represents stability, but at the very infancy stages, at the very beginning of its creation. So 8 to me is that you've built a solid foundation, you're good. 4 to me symbolizes stability, but you're building your stability. So there's a new beginning that is being signified. Let me just go through some of the cards that I have for you. What is supporting you in the next month or so? Well, you have the sea serpent. So the sea serpent and the signal or the emblem here it stands for the spirit, which means what your spirit is going through right now, or let's put it this way, what you're shedding your skin off, what your spirit is shedding right now, whatever skin is being shed, is one that has to do with trust, emotional dependability. Am I enough in relationship? Trust. It is connected to chakra number 2. It is also incidentally where the female organs would be, and male, I believe, as well. So it does affect reproductive system. And it rules the house of creation. So any challenges pertaining to, do I trust you or do I trust myself? Do I trust the world to be there for me, to provide for me, to make me feel safe and make me feel like I know that I'm enough? Any issues around low self-worth or comparing yourself, a lot of you are shedding that skin. And again, this is not a small statement for me to make. I have been saying this lately. I don't make grandeur statements because that's a lot to live up to. So I try to keep it a little bit on the conservative side, but I am supposed to say it. So perhaps I'm supposed to say it to encourage some of you, okay? Those of you who've been trying really hard and nothing has been working, it's to encourage you and to say, hey, keep going. You're just about there, okay? Now, technically there's really no there. There is when you die and you go to the other side. That's where your journey ends. It's a progression, but you are, let's say, at point A and you're heading towards point B and you're kind of at point A and a half, and Spirit is saying you're just about there. So whatever it is that you are desiring, whatever it is that you've been conflicted with, whatever it is that has been missing in your life, there is an opportunity here for you to create it. And your chakra symbolizes, your second chakra symbolizes issues around trust. So on a more mundane level, in a 3D conversion, if you have issues with trust, then chances are you've had issues with relationships when it comes to trust. And if that is the case, then chances are you didn't trust. Your expectation was one of not trusting, or people that are not trustworthy. Where you're heading is a brand new beginning. And it feels to me like things are going to be different. So in terms of success, so what this is telling me is that since I see it's already going to happen and something huge would have to happen for it not to happen. Most of you are leading in that direction, moving in that direction. So in order for this to happen, something has to happen right now. And what has to happen is clearing. So that's the purging. You are clearing stuff out, perhaps around trust in relationships, and so that you can move on, emotionally move on. For some of you, it's clearing house because you're moving. You could be moving your employment place, you could be moving your residence, you could be moving your relationship. There is a movement that's being indicated. But I feel not till the fall. Well, fall starts September 21. So September. So the seed serpent is what's supporting you. It's also to me symbolizing, the circles to me symbolizes an end of a chapter. I also will use words like end of a karmic cycle, end of a long-standing pattern, breaking old habits, emotional habits. That is what I'm being shown. Another way of saying it, I see this also as a number 10, all right? So there's a really good chance for many of you that whatever life is presenting to you or has presented or will present will give you the opportunity to test your new ways of seeing yourself, your new ways of doing things, your new ways of looking at the world. You're going to do something different, and you're going to base it on the idea of trust versus distrust. So one example comes in is someone who is partnered, but they're not living together, and an opportunity comes up, or you have a conversation where you decide we're going to move in together, okay? However, in the past, when you have been with someone, you basically gave yourself away. You sold your goods for nothing, and you just became a bit of a, let's call it doormat, right? So that proposition for you might first and foremost make you go, because the last time you lived with somebody didn't go good. And however, you're choosing not to let your fears dictate to you, and instead you're choosing to make more conscious choices. You're choosing to make choices that are more appropriate to the situation versus choices that were fueled by the idea of lack of something. Give them an example. Okay. Let's say in this example, you decide to move in together. And in your last relationship, one of the things that perhaps you did was you took care of everything, absolutely everything. You were the one taking care of everything. So, and you loved it for a while, and it gave you a sense of value. You saw this as value you bring into the relationship, and it made you feel good. It made you feel important. And then life went on, and you kept on doing all these things, but your partner, is not doing much because the partner doesn't have to. And you're beginning to start to feel funny, and that you began to start to feel funny. And when I say funny, I meant funny and not good. And soon after, perhaps you realize that when it comes to this relationship, I'm the only one that's doing everything. What about the other person? I must not be good enough. And then resentment builds in. So that's an example that's being given, and it actually may be an example of actual situation some of you have gone through. I don't know. Chances are that's the case. But what it illustrates here is that in the past, you've done something one way. Now you have the opportunity to face a similar scenario and do it in a completely different way. So following this example, let's just continue. You move in with your partner, and what you would have done in the past, you would have became responsible for everything. Now you have a conversation in terms of what each person contributes to this household. And you can do a list. You can have obviously communication verbally. You can have it written down. You can make it fun. Point is, both parties know where they stand and what are the expectations. Therefore, there's no disappointments. And maybe in the past, you wouldn't have been brave enough to do it. Maybe in the past, you would have seemed like, oh, if I say that, maybe it's not gonna he's not gonna like it, or she's not gonna like it. Whatever reason you had that you kept yourself back, this time you're going to make sure that you don't hold back, that you do speak up, and that you do say what is important, and that you do effectively communicate when something isn't working, because then you are fully in charge. You are fully in charge of yourself. You're not in charge of your partner. You have no control over that. So I think you get the picture. And I think that's a beautiful way of kind of giving an example of what that could look like. That also means taking charge in a relationship, not because you're taking a relationship over, but you're taking charge of your half. You're becoming responsible for you. There's a lot less resentment that way. Okay, so the second chakra, to me, it's beautiful. It's very, very significant for many, many of you. For some of you, this is end of dealing with sexuality and shame. So if you've had any shame, or if you carried any shame around sexuality, that would absolutely that would absolutely be corrosive to you trusting to open up, trusting to be vulnerable. If you had any hang-ups, you would hold yourself back. So, for some of you, it is around sexuality, and that's not a small thing. That is not a small thing. And so this is, to me, fantastic. The next card you have is the Crow. And the way the Crow landed for me, it landed on a sea serpent. The way cards land to me, they also speak to me that way. We have our own language. So the way it came to me was, this is not the time to avoid what's obvious. It's not the time to avoid facing something. The Crow, generally, when I get the message, is very much about being a psychic, having a clear vision, being clear-eyed and clairvoyant. Your psychic ability is quite high. So you absolutely may be, and one of the messages that over the next little while, your psychic abilities will become much more magnified, and you may have already observed this. You may have already noticed this. So that's a message. That's one message. The other message that I'm getting is what I was saying earlier, is that this is not a time to ignore what's in front of you or to not see the obvious. It's really, really, really important. In other words, if there is some issues to be addressed, and you're saying, there's no issues, I'm fine, then you are avoiding the obvious. For what reason? That's individual to each and every single one of you. But avoidance doesn't solve anything. So I have a feeling here that there is something to be solved or resolved for some of you. Okay, and I'm just and I think it's going to be mostly with others for some of you, but it's also about inner conflict. But I talk about inner conflict all the time. My passion is to help you resolve your inner conflict. All right, let's move on to the next card. How are we doing on time? Good. All right, so what are we leaving behind? Fantastic. Queen of Cups shows up. So for those of you who are tarot readers, you can have your own meaning. By all means, I'm not a tarot reader. I suck at it, so I have my own interpretation. So what I got from this card right off the bat is any emotional insecurities you have been carrying, this is on its way out. I'm telling you, this is absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love this energy of these messages. Excuse my French, excuse my second. So any emotional insecurities, any hang-ups that affect you emotionally, holding yourself emotionally back, holding yourself emotionally back. What else? Any lack, any association to lack that will that makes you feel inferior, and I guess lack would mostly make you feel inferior, L-A-C-K. What's done, it's done. What's done, it's gone. You're leaving things behind. Things that, unresolved emotions from the past, since you, and this is always when you're a child, or I would say 99.9% when you're a child. I'm just going to add this card. This is also what came up, is the Page of Swords. So to me, this is a card of innocence, innocent thoughts, okay? What this is saying to me, that whatever you are facing or are dealing with, there's an opportunity here to go back in time, so to speak, and resolve it. And sounds like many of you have been doing that already. And to me, this is a sign for celebration. This whole thing, like I said, is absolutely magnificent. It is very powerful. And notice if you're feeling any energies. I'm just going to check in. Some of you may be feeling tingling in your faces. Some of you may be feeling tingling in the back of your neck. So some of you may be tingling in up on your lower back towards the left. Okay, so just keep breathing and keep listening. All right. What else are we doing? What else are we dealing with? The Hangman came up, and then the Three of Coins. So let me again share with you what I received. Here's what I feel. I feel you are temporarily like at a stall point. What does that mean? I feel the Hangman to me symbolizes this is not necessarily time of action. This is time of resolving inner conflict. This is time of emotional clearing. This is time of emotional decluttering. But I don't feel like this is time for movement. In other words, if you are kind of feeling stuck a little bit or not sure, I feel you might, and this is in a situation, this is in a physical situation. So if you feel a little bit stuck at work, or you feel a little bit stuck in a relationship, or you feel a little bit stuck in some area, this is a clearing period for you, I feel, and actions would be more favorable if taken around the month of October, okay? So obviously, if you have something you need to decide, like now, then you can't wait. But if you can, and chances are, whatever this is, you can, then you can wait a little bit. As you go through your emotional clearing, sometimes it's very hard to know what feels right and what doesn't. It's because there's a whole bunch of emotions going on. Some of these emotions you might be picking up from your partner or from the situation, from your environment. Some of it could be your own stuff, feeling what's going on right now. Some of it could be stuff you're connecting to from long time ago. So it's making everything worse. When we clear, there's a tendency to feel confused. Okay. When we are confused, it's much harder to obviously clearly see what our inner truth is. And therefore, making decisions is oftentimes not to your benefit, because you're not making a decision based on truly knowing what's going on or truly knowing how you feel. You're either basing it because you're afraid or you're being triggered, or for whatever other reason. But just want to leave that. If there's any way that you can postpone your decision-making process, and they're driving at me with this, so this is going to be for at least one of you, and this is going to be something that's really important. And because whenever you make whatever decision you make, there's no going back. Okay, so you better make sure that you make the correct choice for you. And you're clearing now, so I feel that that's going to change for you. You'll know it when you get there. The Three of Coins Although this is a coin card, which means it's about money and finances, and yes, it could mean that some of you, your job is expanding, you're getting more clients, you're getting more work, but you are happy about it, okay? But it also talks to me about your purpose, quote unquote, and your sense of value in terms of who you are, okay? So your level of awareness in terms of your net worth is expanding. I love how they just said that. Coins to me always represent, not always, but often represent to me value. And it's the value system that we have or don't have or we lack. So there's a huge emphasis here that you are expanding your awareness on that subject. And let me tell you from my experiences of doing hypnotherapy work with clients and have it going always being an experiment myself. Whenever your perception of you shifts and changes pertaining to how the value of who you are, your perception of you, the universe, it's almost instantaneously says, okay, now that you believe, here, take it. So what I'm saying here is, and this is not a small thing, that the tendency is to say it's too good to be true. It's too good to be true. Is it really too good to be true? Change can happen really fast now. We are in the process of accelerating, okay? Most of you will understand this, which is why time flies by really quickly. So the manifestation process happens so much quicker, and it's manifesting on all ends. If you have been working diligently in being mindful of your thoughts, if you have been doing work, then the manifestation of your work is going to be seen by you very, very quickly. At the same time, if you have been focusing on lack, L-A-C-K, if you have been focusing on you not being good enough, you not feeling good enough, you constantly comparing yourself, then you are focusing in the wrong direction. Nonetheless, whatever you focus on will eventually become part of your reality. So it is extremely important, and I can't stress this more or enough, how important it is. This time is right now. It is, I have no words for it even. That's how important it is. I have seen this in my own life in physical proof. I have manifested things in 3 days where I thought about it for years. Just take my word for it, okay? As a matter of fact, it doesn't cost you anything. You have nothing to lose. The only thing that you can benefit from trying this is gain, all right? So if I reiterate this and if I repeat myself, I apologize, but this stuff is worth repeating. Be mindful of who you are in terms of what you think, okay? Who you are, what you think who you are, is part of the creation process. What you think about you gives you a certain feeling of emotion. When you think of that often, it sends a signal to the universe to go out and create and bring more of the same. In other words, when you focus on the negative aspects of you, which I'm sure you have, we all do, negative, then negativity is what you will bring more of into your life, okay? You'll seek it out. You've heard it a million times. I'm just going to say it 1,000,001. On the other hand, if you focus on positivity, however, when I say focus on positivity, it does not mean that you pretend things that are wrong are fine. That doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that at all. As a matter of fact, it means despite shit going wrong, so to speak, sometimes, it is important and critical for you to have a vision of a different outcome. And we have it backwards. Well, when I say we, most people. We believe it when we see it. And that's backwards. Because what we see is what we believe. Therefore, we have to check our beliefs and see if it corresponds to what we want to see, right? So sometimes you will not have the proof of your work until much, much later. But it doesn't mean that your work isn't working. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It's not going to produce your results. It just means there's a time lag between your effort and the physical manifestation of something, okay? This is not a time to quit. This is not a time to quit shifting your perspectives. This is not a time to quit on yourself. This is not a time to quit because something hasn't been working. This is not a time to quit. I haven't been this forceful with any messages. Why is it? Because I feel it's just around the corner, and it is being indicated it's next year. I think I mentioned this already. So, you don't want to quit a minute before it happens, right? So I want to leave that with you. I'm checking with the time, or we're still good. We're still pretty good. What else do I want to say? They keep reminding me the idea of snowflake, the message behind the idea of snowflake. It is about accepting your individuality. It is about accepting you as you are with all your snowflake stuff, despite what everybody else looks like. So this is going to be for those of you who determines your value purely based on looks, okay? And I don't think I have to go further with that. That's going to be for some of you. What else do I want to say? Priorities. Okay. Always remembering what your priority is in terms of what's important to you. Okay? If it's more important to you to have a stable job than to be happy at a job, then you stay where you are, make peace with it, okay? Or you can decide that maybe there's room for both and allow the universe to kind of show it to you. And you could substitute work for something else. You can substitute, relationship, marriage, whatever you want to call it. But there's a feeling here like you're shifting gears. And whenever the car shifts gear, it goes faster. It's much more efficient. It is more powerful when you shift higher into a higher gear. Now that's an interesting analogy. I don't think I had that analogy before. So your life and you are, it's like you're shifting gear, and every gear is very important. Some gear accomplishes more than another gear. So what was doesn't mean it was wrong, but you are now ready for something different and something new. I think I'm indicating new beginnings for you guys, and the tower moment I think is also indicating new beginnings. And there's no question in my mind that many of you are reportedly moving away from something that sucks, okay? Reportedly, I guess what you've literally said these words, this sucks, and you are choosing to make your own way in whatever capacity, okay? Conservative attachments is a message to me that felt holding on to for dear safety. But what came to me more than anything, it's an idea of having something that's kind of, but you're holding on to it because you're too afraid to let it go, because if you let it go, there won't be anything else, or you won't find anything equally as. That is what I got more than anything. So for some of you, this is around relationships, where you are holding on to a relationship that is, that goes against what your truth is. But you are choosing to hold on to it anyway because you believe you're too afraid to let it go in a fear that you won't find anything else. Maybe you think you're too old. Maybe you think nobody wants me. Maybe you're still trying to compare yourself with, in which case you need to accept that you're a snowflake. All right. So watch out for those circumstances. It could be in a job situation where you are holding on to something that is really not working for you, and it's barely paying the bills, because you think there's going to be nothing better. That's your perception. Now, I want to be very careful with this. I'm not saying that some of you have a situation where you have to go to this crappy job because you have no other choice. I'm not saying don't. That would be so irresponsible, and quite frankly, it would be very arrogant for me to say that. I would never say that. However, if your work situation cannot change because it brings you stability, and let's say you make good money, you have good benefits, you have stability there, but you're just not liking what you're doing, not in a million years would ones that I work would say quit or leave right now. Never ever happened. Never ever happened. However, you can try something outside of work that makes you happy. You can engage in something that is much more heart connected. You can start developing something unique about you, or you can start to enhance a skill or a gift that you have, and you begin to express that gift. So all of a sudden, your work may not give you that satisfaction, but something outside of your work does, okay? And eventually you might find that you transition into something different altogether, but at least you're not going to be quote unquote miserable, all right? In a relationship scenario, if you are in a relationship where things are not going right, and it's done, but you're just kind of hanging on because you feel there's no one better, or no one, you'll be alone, then perhaps don't make those changes right now. Like I said, it's best you hold off from making any decisions until later, and instead spend time and effort and energy in cultivating a greater sense of peace inside of you. In other words, start believing you are the snowflake, which means you yourself have your own unique value. There is no one in this universe like you. You are an individual, okay? And accept you for who you are. Doesn't mean you don't want to perfect things or you don't want to improve things. Absolutely. However, if you want to improve it from a place of knowing that you are already enough, that you are already perfect with all your faults and with all your flakiness, okay? And I'm speaking to all of us. And own it. And then from that point, love your craziness and then improve on something. But not because you're not good, or you're missing something, or you're inferior, or you're not deserving, whatever that nonsense that we begin, which is purposeful, we learn from it. Start creating this inner sense of peace, this knowingness that you are enough. And what would that feel like if you felt that way? There's been a few times in my life where I have had that feeling, in an altered state. And it's quite overwhelming. So I'm sure what I experienced was a heightened level of awareness, but for someone who has challenges, I have had challenges around my own value. For someone who has had challenges around loving oneself or believing that you're worth something, to actually feel that you are enough and that you are perfect just as you are, and there's nothing, you absolutely feel at peace. It's an overwhelming feeling. So it takes a while to get used to. So what I'm trying to say is this: if you've been hard on yourself most of your life, then chances are you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning completely shifted your consciousness and awareness, unless you just had a near-death experience, in which case something might have happened before that near-death experience, and we don't want that, okay? Generally, this happens over time. It's a feeling of discomfort. Feeling amazing about yourself at the beginning is not comfortable because it is not who you are. So take time and be persistent with feeding yourself the right message. Saying I am good enough is much different than saying I'm stupid. I should have known better. I'm stupid. Okay? I'm looking at the time. I really stretched it. I hope that this is okay. I wish you best of luck. I'm going to leave this for now. I think you have a lot to chew on. If you had any sensations from the energy, I would love for you to comment on that, because I am being trained in that right now. All right? I'm a healer, apparently. We all are. So I wish you best of luck. Please take care of yourself, and always remember, you are already enough. You are already gazillion% enough. Start from there, okay? Begin to cultivate what that feels like to be enough. And I wish you a fantastic journey, but I will see you in a few videos or two. And until we meet again, God bless and see you soon.